And we are live.
Good morning. Today is March 15th. This is the Senate Health and Welfare Committee meeting, and we're going to be looking again at the child care bill. And we're going to start with Joyce Manchester and Nolan Langwell on some of the financial pieces in the bill. Do you have it?
I do.
Okay. And do we have it here on our webpage, or you want to just put it up on the
So I just
screen?
emailed it to Alex. So it-
Okay, well, we can put it on the screen. That's really helpful.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joyce Manchester with the Joint Fiscal Office. And I think I'm going to share my screen.
You should be good now.
Let's try it. Okay, good. So yesterday we talked about this new middle ground reimbursement amount, and there were questions about the dollar amounts that families and CCFAP would be paying for families at different levels of the federal poverty level. So I put together just a few slides to try to illustrate that. So here's the question: what dollar amounts would families in CCFAP pay at different levels of FPL? So remember that we are thinking about the middle ground reimbursement amount as $23,000 per child per year on average. And that comes from scaling up the current CCFAP reimbursement rate. Essentially, we'd be paying about a third more per child per year. And also recall that the 23,000 is an average across infant, toddlers, and preschool. So the amount paid per infant is a bit higher than toddlers, and toddlers are a bit higher than preschool children. Okay, so the idea of this proposal is that we would start family payments of $50 per week for families at 185% of the federal poverty level, up to 200% of the FPL. Prior to 185% of FPL, CCFAP would pay the full amount, the full, on average, $23,000 per year. And just to remind you, a family of 3 FPL at 185% would be $45,991. A family of 4 would be at $55,500. And the idea is that for every 25% increase in the FPL for a family, every time a family has higher income, the weekly payment goes up by $25 for that family. So we're going to look at a chart that will show you what that looks like. The CCFAP reimbursements continue, but they get smaller and smaller. The family pays more and more until we get to 575% of the FPL, at which point the family is paying the full amount. So at 575%, the family of 3 has income of $142,945. The family of 4 would have income of $172,500. Okay, so this is just a chart to remind you how we got to the middle ground amount. So if you look at the annual amount right now, at the 75th percentile, the CCFAP reimbursement is about $17,250 on an annual basis. The middle ground, as I said, is at $23,000, and the RAND report identified the high quality average reimbursement at $28,100.
And just as a reminder, that 28,100 was based on total cost of care.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and the 23,000 that we're looking at is just an average that was
In
selected. So there's a difference in the way those two were arrived at.
Absolutely.
And the 1725 was market rate. So 23 is more like a market rate rather than a total cost of care.
It's
Change.
sort of in between.
In between.
It's
In between, okay,
Yes.
that's what we can do.
Yes,
Uh,
right. Okay, so again, you saw this chart yesterday. This is what the percent of income would look like for families. It starts at 185, it goes up to 575. And then as a percentage of income, the share of income for families above that is slowly declining, of course, because they're paying the same amount, the 23,000 per year, and their incomes are growing, so their share is dropping off. Okay, so here's the new chart. So this is,
Oh, this
isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, it is. It's called cross stitch. This is called a cross stitch.
Yes. Okay, so let's focus on the family payment first, because I think we've been thinking in those terms. So the family payment is the blue line that starts low and goes high. I've tried to identify just a few points so that you can see what's going on. So at 185, you can see that there's a crossbar, a short crossbar that's labeled 2,600. So that's the family that's paying $50 per week, which amounts to $2,600 per year. The next level at 200% up to 225% would be paying $75 per week, which is equivalent to $3,900 per year. And then that stair step continues up as the FPL level goes up. And you can see way up there at the top at the 550% of FPL, I've marked the 22,100 level. That's the last group that receives the subsidy from CCFAP. So they would be paying 22,100 rather than the full 23,000. So that's the blue line. We're good with that.
Mhm.
And then CCFAP has to be the difference between 23,000 and what the family is paying. So CCFAP below 185% is paying the full amount at 23,000. And then that drops off as the family moves up, or as different families are at different levels of the FPL.
That's great.
Okay, so, and notice that I've changed the scale. I circled the 800% to show you that previously I was showing all the way up to 1,400%, but I thought we needed more detail on the stair steps. So I've stopped the chart here at 800%, but of course, any family above that is paying full rate.
Yeah.
Okay. And yes, below the chart, you can see the FPL income levels, in case that helps. Okay, so that's the annual basis. And then just in case there are questions about the weekly numbers, this is the same chart, but on a weekly basis. So you can see the first family at 185% of FPL is paying $50 per week. And you can go up the stair step or coming down from CCFAP for the family at 185 to 200%, CCFAP is paying $442 per week. And then it drops off. Okay. All right, and thanks to Nolan, I did a little bit of editing on this FPL chart, and you can see the 185% for families of 3, 4, 5, or 6.
Oh, nice.
And you can see the 575% for those same families. And remember that no CCFAP family has a household size of 2, right? If you are a single parent and with a child, you are considered to have a family size of 3. Okay, so there's that, and that's the end.
So go back to the charts and let's see if there are questions. So let's go. This is a good one. Any questions on this one? So the $25 a week goes up and CCFAP comes down at the same increment, and overall people are paying a little bit more going forward.
It's a nice job
Yeah, this
to,
is really,
you know, mitigate the cliff. Really great.
it does.
Yeah.
It's still not inexpensive for childcare.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it's nice that the cliff isn't quite as extreme and dramatic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think what we need now is numbers or percentages of CCFAP families in each of these buckets,
Right.
so that we can begin to think about the cost And we did have a good talk with CDD folks yesterday, and they are going to work on getting us those numbers, but it's not straightforward, so it might take a little bit of time.
Yeah, and probably, I don't know, do you know, have an idea, Katerina?
We were just asked yesterday at noon, so we're doing the best.
Yeah, no, I understand. There's a lot going on right now. And
Yes.
honestly, once we make decisions in here, then the bill goes to finance and appropriations, and that process will continue. Any other questions? Go ahead.
No, I know you don't have the number of folks per bucket going up, but do you know the number of Vermonters that fall below the 575 percentile federal poverty index level?
So-
Starting point.
What would matter is kids in the 0 to 4 age group and those who used early care and education. And we don't have that exact number. We know that according to the RAND report, about 80% of kids are below 500% of FPL. So there aren't a lot of kids above 500%. The best we know for now.
And do you all get involved in demographic projections at all?
So unfortunately,
Or not really?
no one in the state does demographic projections. Tom Cavett, who is a consultant for JFO, uses Moody's to get demographic projections for Vermont, but it's not done with great detail on Vermont. It's done sort of at a national level and then typed out among states. So also, I will say, I have looked very carefully at the 2010 census, the 2020 census, what happened in between. And you probably know that by 2019, we were about 20,000 below the actual number that came out in 2020. So those estimates were not tracking very well. Plus, we've had the whole pandemic migration upset. So it's very difficult to do demographic projection here.
Other questions? Katerina, why don't you introduce yourself for the record?
Katerina Lasai, Senior Advisor to the Commissioner at the Department for Children and Families. I had a question around how the new CCFAP rates are being calculated, and that you're now again introducing stars and a tiered system into reimbursement for providers, which doesn't actually address the equity issue that we brought up in the governor's budget. And I was just curious if there's any information that you could share about that decision.
So I think it was based on the RAND report indicating the level of the number of stars programs, 4 and 5 star programs we have in the state as compared with the 1 to 3, 0 to 3, but it's really 1 to 3. And so identifying 2 cohorts and then maintaining some kind of incentive for those folks who were at the 4 and 5 star level to continue and provide incentives. The committee had expressed an interest in continuing some kind of incentive-based system for quality purposes. So that's the kind of the motivation for that, and then identifying in the RAND report that distinction. We added that into our calculus and things.
I would just respond in saying that still creates inequities for families receiving this subsidy in the state. So for providers that have 1 to 3 stars, they will be receiving a lower subsidy rate, which does create inequities across the state.
So that's a good point to be made, and we really appreciate that. And as we go through the language in the bill, we'll keep that in mind and see how it eventually triggers off.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Me? We're good. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is I'm going to turn to Alex. What's the Have you heard back from economic
So
development?
yes, they're gonna zoom in and join us when we hear from Damien at 8:30.
Okay, so Katie, at
They
8,
might join us closer to 8:45. Because of their schedule.
are they on schedule?
I think so.
It might be 8:30. Is it 8:30 or
I
8:45?
think it's 8:45 for now.
That they'll
But
be
Damien's
zooming in.
Damien's gonna join us at 8:30, they're gonna join us at 8:45.
Okay, that's fine. So if Damien's coming at 8:30, then we have 6 minutes.
You want to see the new draft?
It would be great just to show us the new draft, and then we'll come back to it after. And it's so great to have Vivian here. She's
It Ginny, can I quickly just, can I comment on what Katerina just said?
Yeah.
Okay,
let me make a
Yeah.
suggestion. Save it for discussion for now. You might.
no, I don't
Is
mind.
it imminent?
It's related to what she said,
Yeah.
so remind me if I forget.
I will. If it's quick, go ahead while Katie's pulling up the draft. Go ahead.
In terms of the equity issue, I get what she's saying, and I think we can incentivize quality, but there's also a fine line between like punishing folks who don't have the wherewithal to get the necessary accreditation and so forth. And I think, I sometimes wonder if there's not another way to encourage quality. That's just a
Yeah,
thought that
no,
I'm
that's a
having.
good point to be made, and maybe there's something else we can add in the bill.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
log into Zoom.
oh,
Okay.
okay.
You see me?
I don't see you in the waiting room. Here, I'll send you another link.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Yep, there you are.
Joyce, thank you very much.
I had fun doing it.
Good. We had fun looking at it. That's our kind of stuff, at least mine.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Amy McLean, Office of Legislative Counsel. So this new draft isn't sweepingly different from the previous drafts you've seen. I continue to just sort of make the adjustments that I hear the committee discussing as we sort of move forward. Same format as always. New changes that were not in the bills introduced are highlighted in yellow. Changes that the committee has never looked at before are highlighted in green. So we already have the legislative intent language we looked at yesterday. Yesterday, we spent a lot of time talking about this section 3512, which is expanding the families that are eligible for the program. So we have the 350 moving up to 575 in this particular draft. We still have language about the format for the applications for CCFAP. As promised, I had a bunch of strike throughs in the last draft. We were repeating that section 3512 because we had two different effective dates. So I removed that big strike through section, and now we just have deleted for section 3. In terms of payment to providers, we did have some changes here. So we show this section twice. The first is that we're moving to enrollment versus attendance based as of July 1, 2023. The second time we show this section is in section 5. And this is the language we spent a lot of time talking about yesterday. And when I was walking through the language, Joyce mentioned, oops, that's not actually the way we're going to calculate the 2 tiers for 4 and 5 stars and 1 to 3 stars. So that is what the green highlighting is, that correction. I will read through this for you so you can understand the new language.
Okay.
The payment schedule shall include reimbursement rate caps tiered in relation to provider ratings at the Vermont STARS program, with providers earning 4 and 5 stars receiving a payment at the 100th percentile of all reported rates for the same provider setting, and providers earning 3 stars or less receiving a reimbursement rate that is 85% of the 5-star rate for the same provider setting if the provider is a center-based childcare or preschool program, or that is 95% of the 5-star rate for the same provider setting if the provider is a regulated family childcare home. The proposal would still strike the language that
the lower limit would not be earning less than the 50th percentile because all programs would be earning higher than that. Then this new sentence about an increased reimbursement rate for infants and toddlers says that a provider shall receive an enhanced reimbursement rate set by the department for the care of infants and toddlers. And then in years in which a new Vermont childcare market rate survey is not conducted, the rate used to reimburse providers shall be increased in alignment with the most recent increase in the employment cost index, So those are the changes that we discussed yesterday, so fine tuning that language. This section 5A was crossed out yesterday. This is the provider compensation and total cost of care recommendations and studies. So this is still in this version of the draft. And then yesterday we didn't get to changes with regard to the transition language. I don't know if you want to look at those now. But
Where does that start?
page 12.
Page 12. You know, it's right at 8:30.
Okay, I can stop.
So this, we're stopping in that same place again, but this is very helpful.
We don't have Damien with us yet.
Oh, good. So let's keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was in yesterday's draft, but we just didn't have a chance to get to it. So this is the idea that Building Bright Futures is going to help with the transition. The transitions discussed in this bill. So this new language would read that Building Bright Futures shall consult with and provide technical assistance to the Department for Children and Families and the Agency of Education for the purpose of implementing the provisions of this act, including any plans to establish or alter the pre-kindergarten program established in section 829, reorganize the Department for Children and Families, implement changes to the Child Care Financial Assistance Program, and establish the Non-Citizen Child Care Assistance Program. Then more specifically, Building Bright Futures shall develop a concrete transition plan in relation to both the reorganization of the department and changes to CCFAP that ensures accountability using various metrics and addresses workforce and programmatic costs. Second, monitors those transitions over time and reports annually on January 15 between the years 2025 and 2028 to the House Committee on Human Services and to this committee with its observations and recommendations. And lastly, defines and measures success in process and outcomes using a continuous quality improvement framework. So those are the changes to the childcare section.
Okay. Is there anything else? Because that's it for anything.
They're conforming changes in the effective dates to reflect that we've shifted
Okay.
things around.
Yeah, so look through the green language there and questions for Katie. Go ahead.
Thank you. The number one,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not gonna speak for the department, they're in the room, but it seems a little odd that we would have Building Bright Futures overseeing a reorganization of the DCF and the program within DCF.
Yeah, I think they wanted to be involved. I'm not sure that they wanted to be this involved. So I'm looking at Katerina. Can you comment on that language and perhaps help us improve it?
I will have to talk to our legal to have actual language
Okay.
suggestions. But I would agree with Senator Hardy of, an oversight of a department restructured by an outside organization. There are some
Problematic.
problems with that.
Yeah, okay, we get it. We understand. Okay,
And that's also assuming that Building Bright Futures is gonna be around
Yeah.
at that time.
yeah, well, no, they are.
Okay.
They're permanent in statute and
Oh,
federal.
Okay, I thought they were gonna go away until.
Yeah.
You're
That's
thinking
what's
of-
kids.
Yeah.
That's just for kids.
Understood.
I know,
Sarah
things
will
get
turn into a
confusing out there. Okay, so that's problematic. I think Bright Futures wanted to help coordinate,
Okay.
as to the extent practicable, and then, Katerina, maybe you could, communicate with Katie and we can pull this together.
Sure, it could just be a
ASAP.
shift, and I'll just throw it out there, in the lead-in language,
Sure.
specifically Building Bright Future shall assist in coordinating or something like that instead of,
That makes sense.
yes, okay. Great.
Okay, perfect timing. So Damien, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Just take your time. You can sit there. and
Just
take
had
your-
my
take your-
laptop restart, so
Okay,
sorry about that. Good morning, everyone.
good morning.
Morning.
For the record, I am Damian Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. And you have a section X
Yes.
next to you. So right now, the section is entitled Child Care Financial Assistance Program Parental Leave Benefit. That title could change. So I meant to take out the CCFAP reference before coming in, so just wanted to point that out. It's in there in a couple places and I just missed it.
Is this
This is Senator Kitchell's
Yeah,
proposal from
section
yesterday.
X, the new one that Alex handed out to us.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
The old one from yesterday, we should hand back in, give it to Alex, discard it because it's got some errors in it. We don't want it to,
yeah.
prejudice anything else. about the new one.
Working online.
You have to read.
Oh, yeah, I
Fresh.
sent Alex one with a corrected header too, just a few minutes ago. So none of the substance changed. I just updated the header. Forgot to
Okay.
do that yesterday. So
All right,
so this got some updates late yesterday. So this would be run through the, well, I'm actually not sure what the division is. So it's run through the same part of DCF that runs
Yes,
CCFAP. So, and I apologize because that's out of my area of expertise. And so I relied on Katie just for where I was placing it.
it's okay, because
Um,
part of the bill will also have some governance structural reorganization, perhaps, which might even change the designation, so
Okay,
you're totally in the loop with us.
so anyway, speaking about the things I do know
Good.
in the bill and not the things that I relied on Katie for, it sets up a 12-week parental leave benefit. The actual benefit per week is to be determined. So you'll see a TBD in there. It's only available to one parent per household. So if you have a one-parent household, that parent gets it. If you have a two-parent household, you have to pick which parent would take the benefit. It is available, as you'll see, if you go to the definitions on page 3, you'll see the definition of eligible parent is an individual whose annual gross family income is not more than 600% of federal poverty. So that caps eligibility. The benefit is calculated in increments of 1 full day, which would be, so for each day, it's 1/5. So you're assuming a 5-day, 40-hour work week for simplicity's sake. So it's per workday taken, and this recognizes that in some instances, especially for parents who are closer to 600% of FPL, depending on where you set the benefit, they may want to use paid annual leave or personal leave or sick leave through their employer, and then pick this up for the remainder of their parental leave. So,
Okay.
and that we'll get to how those two will interplay in just a moment. So the benefit is paid out within 14 days after approval of the application or within 14 days after the leave begins, whichever occurs last. So this allows individuals to apply in advance and then within 14 days after the birth or adoption, you can start receiving the benefit. Or you can also apply after the leave begins and receive backdated benefits within 14 days of approval. And then it's a bi-weekly payment after that. The next piece here on line 18 of page 1 that's important to note is this is a parental leave benefit for a single continuous period. This is not an intermittent leave benefit. So you have to basically say, I'm going to take this block of time for parental leave and use it. The division's directed to develop a simple plain language application that would be available both electronically and physically. And then would also be required to make available informational materials on its website. We're turning to page 2 now. To receive the benefit, you have to submit an application. You need a signed certification from the eligible parent's employer that they are currently employed or were employed within the last 30 days before the start of the parental leave. This recognizes that not every parent who takes this leave benefit is going to be guaranteed a job when they are done with leave. So parental leave in this state applies to employers that have 10 or more employees working an average of 30 hours a week, which means that the majority of our employers, roughly 75 to 80%, don't meet that description. That said, roughly half the employees in the state would still potentially, if they're working full-time, be eligible for job protected leave. That's the other piece, is as an employee, you need to also be working an average of 30 hours a week over the course of a year. So you have to have been employed for a year and been working nearly full-time to be eligible for job protection. So one of the really important things to note with this is not a job protection bill. This is a leave benefit. And if you're entitled to job protection, there is an avenue for you. And if your employer says, I'm sorry, I can't keep your job open for you, there's also an avenue for you to receive the benefit. And then there needs to also be a statement of intent to return to work or seek new employment after the parental leave. So it can be either one. There's no requirement that you have to try to return to the same job or anything like that. Some parents may decide they want to return to a job that's more flexible or provides closer to home, something like that. The eligible parent would submit all of that to the division, either in anticipation of the birth or during the actual leave itself. So what you can't do is take the full leave and then after you've returned to work, say, hey, I'd like to apply for benefits from a couple months ago when I was on leave. You need to either do it before or during the leave. Benefits could be used as wage replacement for leave under the state's job protected leave law, which I was mentioning earlier, or the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act, which applies to very few workplaces in Vermont because we're so small. You need to have 50 or more employees. So the number of Vermont employers that meet that category, I think, is in the low hundreds. And then you'll see this language at the bottom of page 2 twice. The receipt of benefits shall not extend the leave provided pursuant to one of those laws. It basically means that you can't, for example, take 2 weeks of vacation to start your leave and then say, I'm going to go for 12 weeks of benefits and then expect your employer to hold your job open for you. So the employer at 12 weeks is no longer legally obligated to hold your job. They can, they don't have to though. So that's the important thing to keep in mind. Some employers will say, take up to 6 months. Some employers will say, I'm only going to provide what the law requires. So, And then nothing in this section alters the job protection or employment-related rights in those job protected leave statutes. As I mentioned earlier, to be eligible, you have to be earning no more than 600% of FPL. You have to either have had a child born within the preceding 12 months or an individual, or you have to have had a child 10 years of age or younger placed for adoption within the preceding 12 months. That 12-month look back is consistent with the job protected leave laws. You can take leave anytime in that first year for parental purposes. And then parental means an individual who's a parent to a child, regardless of whether the relationship is biological, adoptive, or step relationship, or has day-to-day responsibilities to care for and financially support the child. So that additional language is well established under the federal FMLA, and it recognizes that sometimes you have a parental relationship where, for example, a grandparent has taken is taking over parenting of the child for whatever reason, or where the two parents may not be legally married, and one of the parents who's not biologically related to the child but is caring for the child is the one who's going to take the leave. And then
Senator Williams.
FMLA,
Federal Family and Medical Leave Act. I'm sorry. Thank you for
That's okay.
stopping me.
okay,
I slip into acronyms.
it's all right.
The next piece here is on page 4. And what this language is it's language within the our existing Parental and Family Leave Act for the state. Currently, it gives employees the right to use accrued paid leave up to 6 weeks during their parental leave. And we're adding language that says, in lieu of using that leave, an employee may use parental leave benefits pursuant to 33 VSA 3512A. So we're referring back. It means that you cannot use them at the same time.
I mean, they can't use it at the same time, but they can use it sequentially.
Yes,
Okay.
I think as I'm reading this, so we redrafted this yesterday.
Okay.
I think I would add the words not to exceed 12 weeks after 3512A on line 8. And then add another sentence clarifying that you may use the benefits sequentially. So,
So they can stack them, basically.
basically, yeah. So for example, if you set the benefits so that someone who's at 500 to 600% of FPL would be earning less from the benefit than they would through their paid sick leave, and they may want to use paid sick leave from their employer or paid annual leave, whatever it is, until they exhaust that to keep their wage replacement as high as possible. And then for the remaining, say, 8 to 9 weeks of their leave, they would use this parental leave benefit to help them bridge the gap for the remainder of the year.
Could they use the full 12 weeks though?
So there's nothing in here that prevents them from using the full 12 weeks. If they started off with, say, a week or 2 of annual leave. The thing that may prevent them from doing that is their employer may say, I can't hold your job for 14 weeks. And so that's just one area here where there may be a disconnect. So you can't extend your job protection unless your employer agrees to it. So that's the potential sticking point there. But if your employer agreed to it, then you could go seek the full 12 weeks of state benefits and use all of the leave you've got through your employer.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Other questions at this point? That's very clear.
Just one, back on the first page, you still have the TBD, that's the weekly amount, where's that at, or is that from George's work? Somebody else?
So, yeah, I don't, the answer is I don't know.
Okay.
I was told to leave it as TBD for sort of a policy determination as to what the appropriate amount was. So I spoke with Senator Kitchell yesterday, and she didn't have an amount that she wanted put in, so
Okay.
I left it there. I don't know if Joyce has something.
I think
So-
yeah, I think that's being worked
Yeah.
on in JFO. And then it will be fine tuned ultimately in finance and in appropriations. So we have another bill in 10 minutes. However, Senate Economic Development, welcome. You are here with us. We're glad you're here with us. We just had the opportunity to go through the proposal with Damien, and we've asked a couple of questions. We have 10 minutes left in our time before we're going to have to separate from you, unfortunately. So Senator Hinsdale, would you like to have Damien begin the proposal here again? How do you want, what was your thinking? You're muted.
So, thank you. Hi, I was waiting for us to be unmuted. Good morning, Senate Health and Welfare. Okay, it sounds like what makes the most sense is we have Damien on our schedule, so as long as he's not due somewhere else, if are you able to let him go in 10 minutes?
Well, that's good. You're gonna owe us something when we do that, but yes, that seems absolutely fine. And then we'll.
Okay.
Yes, and great.
We can negotiate. I have a jar of pickles. Pickles for Damien.
Oh, pickles. Oh, that's appropriate for the bill we're working
We
on.
will-
And you have Jane
yeah,
Mitchell.
well-
So.
Jane is here.
Okay,
Jane,
but
Jane just walked in the door.
We'll leave you now and we'll have Senator Kitchell start with us and then we'll have Damien walk over when he's done with you all.
terrific. I think that's probably the best solution given where we are in life, so thank you.
But it's so nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for coordinating. This is fun. We'll have to do it again.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Yeah, George.
Unless there's more.
Would you like a find pickle?
So I guess.
He's got it.
He's got it. Oh, good. All right. Well, so Damien, any questions for you at this point? Anything further? There's a lot here that I'm very appreciative that economic development is going to be going through this because the federal Medical Leave Act and then some of the things that we currently have in statute we are unfamiliar with in here unless we've been through it previously. So unless folks have questions, I think
Okay,
we're good, and we may phone a friend again.
all right, sounds good. Great. Well, thank you for your time. I will coordinate with Katie
Please.
as to language and references to where this
Yeah, and,
lives.
how it fits in the bill is something else when we get.
I understand that you guys are still
Yeah, we're just
working,
about there.
working hard on the bill, so.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is just, if there is a specific name for the program that you would like besides childcare financial assistance, parental leave benefits.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about that. We have to come up with a creative, program, because it is different and we can make it unique.
Can I ask something before Damien?
Yeah.
leaves? So I was just chatting with Katie about this first paragraph seems to imply that this program would be funded out of the CCFAP funding. And
It's not.
I
That was the
don't
question
think
I asked.
that is probably
That's-
kosher with the funding stream.
Right, so that is one of the things here is the way this was drafted initially,
Uh-huh.
it implied that it was going to be part of the CCFAP, funded through CCFAP, and that's one thing that's going to have to change.
Yeah, okay, good.
It'll need a dedicated funding stream.
Right.
Obviously, this won't be free, so
It won't be.
I know.
Magic.
Well,
Um,
yeah, so that was a question that I asked yesterday and talked, and so, well, that has to be.
Yeah, and I was just saying, and I said this to you yesterday, Madam Chair, that it might make sense for this, if the division, the new
Oh, yeah.
reorg goes through
Economic
that have the Department of Economic Empowerment do this program, because it's more in line with their sort of giving out money.
That's a Katie thing, Katie.
That is a
yeah.
Katie.
Yep,
Yeah.
and I'll
Katie-
coordinate
that's
with
Katie's
Katie.
department.
And yeah, when we can fit the pieces together if you decide to
Sure.
move forward with us.
Yeah, good.
So, great.
Okay, I'm not hearing that the committee would not like to push forward with this. I think it helps parents. Period. And we heard an estimate of, I think the high estimate we heard yesterday was $15 million, and that'll be an issue for finance and appropriations in terms of raising the money and appropriating it in some way that it is designated.
I would like to try to get more weeks than just 12.
Good luck. Okay. Questions, committee comments at this point? I mean, when I say at this point, I'm pretty close to the decision-making. We are deciding now how we're going to proceed. The language might change, but unless I hear a majority of people wanting not to do this, I'm gonna move forward with it. Okay. Not hearing it. Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your time.
So I have another question, then we're going to take a 4-minute break. That is with regard to the language that we just went through, and Katie will be able to, are you going to be back? Yes.
I will be back on S47.
Okay, and we might pick this up as
Okay.
well then.
Great.
And just go through again and make some decisions
Okay.
on this, so that's good.
Alex,
So,
and Alex, let Joyce and I know if that happens, when that happens,
yes,
there won't be.
yes, I should not leave you out. Thank you both.
$10.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, so let's